Thank you, everyone, for viewing The Voices of a Black Man. My name is CK James, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with none other than Mr. Craig D. Williams. The Voices of a Black Man is a platform for Black men to be able to tell their narrative through their lens. And today we're here to talk to Craig to tell his narrative through his lens. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Sherelle?
I am doing well. Are you ready to get going?
I am.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm just going to start from the very, very beginning. Tell us about young Craig. Where is he from? How did he grow up?
Okay. So young Craig, I was actually born in Kinston, North Carolina, but that's because in Jones County, where I'm from, we don't have a hospital. Still don't have a hospital to this day. But I was raised in Jones County. Growing up, Jones County was actually one of the poorest counties in North Carolina at the time. Basically, everybody there was, there was not a lot of the haves, a lot more of the have-nots. As a child, I am the ninth of 11 kids, which kind of was a defining attribute of my life, right? Being from such a large family. Even though it was from a rural area, there was still very few families as large as ours. Um, Being the ninth child in that order, we had a mom and dad, but we also had parents of all the kids that was above us. Went to a small school in Jones County. There was 4 elementary schools, which all combined to go to one middle school, and then all those middle school students just went to one high school, all in the same county. And still, it was a 1A high school, so that kind of tells you how small it was. But growing up, we grew up on a farm, so hard work was always a must. We worked on our farm or in the garden, but we also went and helped others on their farm as we got older. So,
Wow. So, what was farm life like?
um, it wasn't like what you see on TV, that's for sure. Um, we we didn't grow up on the typical farm. So when I was born, we my prior to 74, 75, my parents actually was farmed tobacco. But after I was born, then they kind of gave that up and just started doing like this big vegetable garden. But we had pigs and chickens, to kind of sustain us through the winter. We always had a huge garden, so we had vegetables throughout the summer. And then we would, of course, can and stuff so we can have stuff to go into the winter.
Did you learn any work ethics or anything like that? What did farming teach you?
It taught me everything about work ethic. You get up early before it gets too hot. You try to get as much work as you can before the heat of the day. So you always learn. You had to get up early. You had to get up early. You had to go make it happen. But even when it got hot, if you didn't have your work done, then you would still have to work through that. Work through the day. And sometimes, like we would go work on other people's farm for, let's say, from 7 to 5. Then you have to come home and do additional work, either feeding the hogs or doing stuff in the garden, or during the winter we had to chop wood. Like when you get out of school, you have to go and cut wood and chop wood in order to make sure you have heat in the house. So it was interesting. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Going through it and growing up in that, I would not have chosen it, but now I see how that defined my life. But yeah, at the very least, you learn work ethic. You also learn about teamwork because one person couldn't do everything. So as a family, everybody had their things they needed to do in order to make sure that we all had enough.
So, number 9 of 11 kids.
Yes. Yep.
What was that like?
Everybody thinks it was a joy, and now it is. We all love it now. But growing up, especially when you had, let's just say, the means were not as abundant as they are now. So it was a struggle then. But we always had family. We always had one another. We were there to support one another. We loved, we fought, we competed. Very athletic family, so everything we do, we compete. So growing up, we always had somebody to play with. And growing up in such a rural area, there was our family and then 2 or 3 other families within like a 2-3 mile radius, right? So in order to find other people to play with, you would have to literally travel miles, and that wasn't happening. So we played with one another. if you weren't working, then we would just go in the yard and play games all day,
Yeah.
whether it be stickball or kickball or whatever we can make up, we played.
Mhm.
Putting the bicycle rim on the tree, all of that happened.
So it sounds like you guys had some built-in entertainment.
Oh, all the time, all the time, all the time. We would. That's where you learn how to be an engineer, right? When you don't have and you have to create something, then we that's what we did. We created.
Mm.
Um, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, just say lots of downtime, right? So you had to fill those gaps with whatever you could, whether it be fishing, whether it be throwing clumps of dirt at one another, whatever it could take to fill the day. We did.
Yeah, yeah. So now you talked about being a sports family. How did sports impact your life?
Sports was definitely influential in my life, simply because all of my brothers and sisters grew up. As a matter of fact, we had a family traveling softball team. So they would play co-ed sometimes. Most of the time, it was the females, and then the males would play on different teams. And on the weekends, we would travel around to different small cities and play one another. Since I was one of the younger ones, I never got a chance to participate in that, but I always had that desire to play, which kind of fueled my love for sports. And then, as you're going through the same school systems, they knew you as such and such brother or such and such, sister. So we all kind of had that expectation that you were going to be an athlete as you were going through school. And of course, as a competitive family, the next one always try to outdo the one before, right?
Yeah. So what was your sports of choice?
So my sport of choice, I've always loved basketball. Unfortunately, that wasn't the one I was best at, but I played football, basketball, and baseball. Baseball was probably my best sport, but the one that I liked least. But football, basketball, and baseball gave me something to do from the time sports started until the end of the season. It was kind of an escape from having to work on the farm. So I always try to get that little away time.
Okay. As you look back to your younger years, who were influences in your life?
So without a doubt, my parents, my older siblings, and when I say parents, it's almost funny that I have to say my two parents, my biological parents, but again, my siblings, right? I mean, and that's all we had. That's all we had outside of when you started school. And then you have the influential teachers, you have the influential guidance counselors. I also was big into 4-H, so my 4-H agent really had a big impact on my life. He empowered me to do so many different things that I would not have had opportunity to do had I not been participating in 4-H.
So how did you get involved in 4-H?
Again, it was one of those things. Since I was the younger one, my older brothers and sisters, he came down to do a meeting, and I think I was 7 at the time, and you had to be 9 in order to participate. So I remember him telling me that I wasn't old enough to join, but if I came back in 2 years. So literally from that day on, I started like counting down to when I can join 4-H, just because it was something to do as a chance to be with other people in the community, not just my family. And looking at some of the stuff that they was doing was pretty cool. So when I turned 9, I got involved, and actually I got really involved, and I was able to do stuff, anything from learning how to cook, how to prepare some of the vegetables that we did. We did stuff with horticulture, which I've always loved plants. We even did fashion show, right? That's where I learned how to sew, and we made clothes and model them in the fashion show. Just small things like that.
Nice. So what did 4-H attribute to your life today when you look back?
So much. I look at being able to compete. So we would have these projects where you would have to do stuff throughout the year and record what you did. So I knew I wanted to do something in engineering, so I did the electric project. So we would do stuff around the house, like maybe filling bean bags to put at the bottom of a door in order to save electricity. And also I used to say electricity, which he taught me that, you have to say this in order to do it the right way. Or covering windows during the winter in order to try to maintain the temperature in the house. But then we would compile all of this information, create a project, and then we would speak on it at, you would first go to county, then you would go to district, then state, and then fortunately I was at state, I won, and I was able to go and compete nationally in Chicago.
Oh, nice. Nice.
which was huge, a big, I think that was the first time I left North Carolina as a 16-year-old flying to Chicago to compete nationally. It was interesting. It was very interesting. So it kind of broadened my horizon.
Yeah. Was that the first time that you saw a lot of different other cultures?
Oh, absolutely. Because in Jones County, I think it's roughly 60% white, probably 30% black, and then 10% of just whoever. Um, so yeah, when I went to Chicago, I got a chance to see not only different cultures, but just the makeup of people in those cultures, right? I got a chance to see affluent black people, which there's not a ton of those in Jones County. Got a chance to see, white people from the Midwest. So that was very different for me. That was the first time somebody asked, "Hey, can I touch your hair?" Right. So I was like, it was interesting. It was interesting. And I think it was more than 2,000 kids. So from all over the United States, from the Virgin Islands, just a chance to see people from all over.
Yeah. Yeah. Things you may have seen on TV or heard about or read about, but never really experienced.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. So let me ask you this question. This is a serious question. When's the first time that you realized that you weren't just a young man, but a black man, and what did that mean to you?
Um, so I remember in kindergarten, and again looking at the racial makeup of the classroom. Again, 60% white, 30% black. But even though nobody was rich, I noticed that the black kids had less than the white kids in our class. So I would say that was the first time that I realized that, hey, we may not be like everybody else. And then from that point on, right, like you go into the beaches of North Carolina, and you see this, there was us, a lot of us, but then you go like we might be the only one or two, three black families on the entire beach.
What impact did that have on you?
At first, it was made me wonder, okay, why is it like this? And how do I change that dynamic? Even as a child, I knew that, okay, this is not how I want things to be. So I started kind of really formulating the plan. Okay, how do I change this particular dynamic?
So I graduated high school.
Yep.
So we know you were good in sports. How is academics?
Okay, so actually I was really good in academics. I knew I loved sports. I felt like if I could play in the college, I absolutely would. But I felt like academics was going to be my ticket out. So I applied to 3 universities. I applied at NC State, A&T, and UNC Charlotte, the 3 engineering programs in North Carolina. Just want to take a step back. So going into graduation, I'm graduating with honors. I've already been accepted to NC State. Actually, I got accepted to all 3 of the universities I applied to. And it was already pre-decided. Wherever I got the most money, that's where I was going. So I got the most money to go to NC State. I'm gearing up, ready to go. May 2nd, I'm set to take the SAT for the second time. My father has a massive heart attack that night and passed away. And it kind of changes the entire plan. So now, instead of me having somebody to rely on financially, I now have to do all of this myself. I still have my brothers and sisters, but mostly I have to do this myself.
So did it change? Is that why it weighed more heavily on who was giving you the most money?
I was going to go with who gave me the most money anyway. I mean, that was the deciding factor, right? I knew I didn't want to have student loans or as many student loans coming out. So I was still going to go. And also, I knew that NC State had a very high ranking electrical engineering program. So that also decided, was part of my decision-making process.
You talked about your mom and your dad being big influences in your life. Because your dad died when you were so young, what do you carry with you about your dad?
So again, outside of the hard work, that's going to be something that's going to be reoccurring. Is he taught me how to work hard. He would work at 5 o'clock, go to work at 5 o'clock some mornings and not get home at 10 o'clock at night. And he did all of that just so we can have enough. Um, so the hard work that I saw him put in, um, but also my dad was he was bad. He was a bad dude. I mean, he had no fear, right? He cussed out everybody, um, which is very different from me because I try not to try not to use curse words or other things like that. But I mean, that's who he was, right? And I loved him for it. But I saw that he was who he was, no matter who he was around. Whether it was the preacher from church or whether it's just around family, he was the exact same person, regardless, no matter what.
Mm-hmm. So he was authentic.
Absolutely authentic. Absolutely.
Wow.
100% of the time.
So as you move forward into NC State,
Mhm.
you major in.
I majored in computer. Well, I was electrical engineering at first, and then I switched over to computer engineering.
Okay.
So yeah, that was the thing. Going to college doing engineering. I knew I wanted to do something with computers. Something I always was really good at math. So engineering was a natural choice of just which field did I want to go into, and electrical is where I fell. Because originally I wanted to do my own business and be an electrician, but my 4-H counselor, or 4-H agent, actually talked me into doing engineering, which was pretty good choice. Going into NC State was very different for me, because again, in Jones County, 60-30% ratio. You go to NC State and was more like 85-10. But it was one of the best decisions I could have ever made in my life because kind of like when I went to Chicago, when you go to NC State, you're meeting other Black people that were, the tops in their class. Did so many different things. Just was able to kind of broaden my horizon just by being around and meeting them. Also, NC State had a very low graduation rate for Blacks and engineers, so they had this special. They started the program the year that I came in, where all minorities were required to take this one class where they taught you skills on how to graduate from NC State, which was very beneficial. But also it allowed you to meet all the Black people on campus at the same time. So even to this day, if there was a Black person there at the same time I was at NC State, then I definitely know their face. Most likely know their name, but definitely know their face. And some of the stuff they taught us, like you never pass another Black person without speaking to them on campus. So that's kind of like what we did in Jones County, right? You're driving down the road, you just speak to everybody, which is something that we kind of carried over to NC State, and I kind of still do today.
Yeah. So outside of the culture shock, right, the 85-10 culture shock, was there anything else when you started at NC State that you had to get used to?
Yes. So growing up in Jones County, we had a wooden stove, right? So just having central air, central heat, right? I'm like, oh, this is I'm in the right place. But also the size of everything, the magnitude. Like I remember taking out my first chemistry class, and there was hundreds of people in it. My entire high school in Jones County only had, I think I had 80 people in my graduating class, so we had less than 250 people in the entire high school. Other things I had to get used to was just studying. So in Jones County, when I graduated high school, even though I took the highest math that they had at Jones Senior, when I got to NC State, they put me in the absolute lowest math that they had. Now, what does that mean for me? It means that I'm now 2 years behind the other engineering students. So I have to take 2 years of math just to catch up to everybody else. Well, not everybody else, but most other people in my class. So that was a big adjustment. But luckily I had mentors and they explained how it works. And they said, okay, this may be better for you for different reasons. But yeah, just the magnitude, the size of NC State was huge. I think there was 23,000 people on campus. Jones County at the time had about 25,000 people. So.
Wow. So the school was like your county.
Yes, it was.
Wow. So you graduate from NC State.
Yes, long, hard road. It wasn't like I just graduated. There was no light switch. It took me 6.5 years to graduate. But again, best decision I could have made to stick it out. So I graduated. Right before I graduated, I started interning at IBM, which, again, for me, when I started interning at IBM, I think they were paying like $18 an hour. And I'm like, okay, in Jones County, I was making 325 working in the tobacco field. Okay, so I'm going to ride this thing as long as I can. I'm not going to try to graduate. I'm not going to try to graduate. I'm not going to rush to graduate because I'm getting job experience. I'm still in school. So after I spent 2 years at IBM, my son was born. So when my son was born, I was like, okay, life is real now. Things change. I had to get a job that instead of just an internship, I had to get a job that had insurance and the whole nine so I can support my son. So that kind of changed me, and I started working at NC State as I was doing programming, but I was working in the Extension Technology Service, then later went over to the library. So that was kind of my start in IT, was IBM, and then the 2 years that I spent at NC State working at different departments.
So fast forward from IBM, NC State to now.
All right, so that's about a 20-year jump. And I always say that in my adult life, my real adult life, the entire time was spent at Cisco. So I spent about 19 years at Cisco. And again, that was a huge defining part of my life because Cisco was kind of the company to work for, one of the good jobs, as people say. But at the same time, when I was going through Cisco, I always had it in the back of my mind that the plan is, as soon as my kids go to college, I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit, so I'm gonna jump off and start my own thing. So it wasn't like I was just working solo at Cisco. I kind of was running my business on the side. It was kind of part-time thing, more like a hobby. But my youngest son graduated in 2018. So at that point, December 2018, I decided to leave Cisco and pursue my own company.
So when did you discover that you had those entrepreneurial instincts, kind of desires?
Oh man, very, very early on. I recall when like I said, my older sisters and brothers would go and work. I started working when I think I was 6 or 7. So my older brothers and sisters would go earn money, and that was before we did the tobacco field. They was picking cucumbers. And they would go and pick cucumbers, and they would give them tickets for every basket you would get, and they would come home and have all this money at the end of the day. At least I thought it was a lot of money. So I used to beg my mom and dad to let me go pick cucumbers with them, but they always said I was too young. So finally, I guess they got tired of me asking. So they finally said, yeah, you can go, but you had to take my younger brother with me. So all of my family would go and pick cucumbers, and me and my younger brother was so young that we had to carry the basket together in order to get it to the thing. But just earning that money, and I knew it was mine, that I had earned it, just gave me a feeling of being proud. So that's, again, early on. And I think my family has probably been calling me Hustle Man for about 35 years. So that's about the time that it started, is that I've always, I don't know, just felt this desire to go out and work and try to make money, my own money.
So what are some of the lessons learned from being an entrepreneur?
That's not easy. I think back and people ask me, what do I like about being an entrepreneur? And I think a lot about, okay, when you're working for somebody, right, you have a check coming in every 2 weeks. Whereas an entrepreneur, it's almost like hunting and gathering, right? You only eat what you're able to go out and kill or gather. So that's the big difference for me. And that every day I have to go. Like I don't have set vacation times. If there's something that needs to be done, then I have to do it. So it's not easy. However, I'm more fulfilled now than I've ever been before in my life when it comes to work.
So hard work kind of comes natural, right? From being on the farm to now. Making your own money kind of comes natural because you started around 9 years old hustling with cucumbers up to now. When you look at all of that, were there any mentors or anyone who's helped you along those paths to kind of help shape some of those things a little bit more?
Yeah, like I said from a youth, I would say my 4-H agent, my older siblings, even if they weren't in engineering, just able to bounce ideas off of them and get good candid feedback on what moves I should make. I've had managers at Cisco that really took an interest in seeing me being successful in my career, that were really helpful. And I don't know if I can say names or not, but they were really influential. Helped me along the way, right? Because again, when you're going into a huge corporate environment from a small town, you don't always know the right things to do. So growing up, one of the things I had to learn is growing up is you always try to be as humble as possible. Whereas in corporate America, you actually have to go out and you have to tout, or you have to tell who you are and what you did and how you did it, which wasn't something that was natural to me at all. Who else has been influential? My pastor at church has always been influential. He took I can always call him and ask for advice. So lots of people. I can truly say that, people talk about community raises a child. Well, community raises a man as well, because I still have all these mentors that I still reach out to and talk to at different times. And different people for different topics based on what I need or who I need to talk to at a given time.
So as a Black man, what are some of your hopes and fears as you just live in society?
All right. So as I live in society, my biggest fear is no longer about me. It's about my 3 sons, because number one, you always want to leave a better place for them. But number 2, them not being raised up in the same environment that I was raised in. Like I was always raised to be very cautious, know the situation. And intentionally, I did not raise them that way, not to have the same fear. You always respect, but not to have that same fear. So I often wonder, based on the first perception that people have of them, how they're going to respond to them, and just that fear. You've watched the news and seen some of the stuff that's going on. It's scary, right? And I happen to have one son that's 6'5", right? 6'5" kid, 6'5" Black man now, because he just turned 23. People don't always have the best perception of them. So my fears around my kids.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying my fears around my kids and how people respond to them.
Gotcha. What are your hopes for your kids?
Is number one, that they are able to at least have a chance at achieving happiness, because I think that's what everybody is going for, and that the world doesn't put any preconceived notion that they can't achieve anything that they want. Even though as parents we try to instill that into them, there's still many hours outside of the home that they still have information put into them that, okay, maybe they shouldn't do or can't do.
When you walk into a room, what do you want people to say or think about you?
Oh, wow. When I walk into a room, what I want people to say? Number one, I want them to say that he's confident. I want them to see me for who I am. And that's going to be an authentic person that cares about I care about you more so than I care about what you can do for me or what we can do for this situation. I care more about you as a person.
When you walk out, what do you want them to say?
The same thing. I hope they say the same thing when I come in as when I walk out.
Have you encountered any injustices in your life?
Oh, many. So many. Do we want to go back to high school? Want to go back to elementary school?
It's up to you.
So I will say that at one time I was working at a job, and I was gone for 2 weeks, and I came back, and there was a monkey that was hanging by a noose outside my cube.
Outside your cube?
Yeah, outside my cube. So I thought that was a little different, because I thought we had moved past all of that. And even if it wasn't put there for that malice intent, just being insensitive enough not to realize that wasn't funny in any shape, form, or fashion, I think is said enough. I'm not going to waste time trying to think what somebody's intent was. All I know that it was at the very least insensitive.
Yeah. Now you asked me about elementary or middle school, high school. I gotta go back to find out what was happening or what was going on. Something stuck out in your mind.
Yeah, there's always so there was this one situation in high school where again I was involved in many organizations, and a rumor got out that I had kissed a white girl, which I thought was, you know, didn't really bother me any because I knew it didn't happen. And even though the same group of people that supported me in sports, supported me in 4-H, supported me in all these other organizations, when that rumor got out, it almost changed how I was viewed, or changed how they viewed me, all the way down to it almost impacting my job. Once they found out it wasn't true, it was all well and good, but just seeing how people responded when they thought it was true. Because I was a golden child before that. But as soon as I crossed a certain line, as soon as they thought I had crossed a certain line, then things kind of changed. So that was a real shocker for me, because I'm very I like to take people as, you know, who they are, right? Who they say they are. I like to think the best of people. That was the first time that I saw that, okay, people can help you in one instance, but still view you in a certain way.
So I would venture to say, and I don't want to put anything in your mouth, but that's another time that you realize that, oh, I'm a Black man.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not
absolutely.
just a young man.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow is all I can say about that. Just wow, you know.
You know, and I refuse to let situations like that take up any more of my time, because that's one resource I can't get back. Yeah. So what you learn from me is I'm very, very focused. Yeah. And I move on from stuff, and I refuse to let it bother me, because then they win twice.
So what do you do? How do you channel whatever that is that you may have? I don't want to call it anger, because it may not be anger, but whatever emotions it is that you're having, how do you channel those so that you can continue to move
on? So again, if you're focused on your goal, then you see, then you don't always see what's on the side. If you're focused on what's ahead of you, then you tend to let what's on the side go. And I just happen to be very good at that. And anytime I decide to look to the side, then it takes away energy that I can be using to achieve my goal. You know, again, go back to sports, right? If you're a track sprinter, then any energy you use looking to the side to look to see how people are doing, then that's less energy you have moving towards the goal. And that's just how that's how I've always lived my life. All right, I've got one goal. Now, I advise you not to get in my way, because, you know, as long as you're on the side causing problem, we have no problem. But if you're getting in my way, then we have to have a little talk.
Okay. So what's next for Mr. Williams?
So I incorporated Cyber Synergy in 2014. I actually Cyber Synergy, and I have another company called Williams Manor, which does real estate rentals and property management. Cyber Synergy was incorporated the same year. So again, the reason I left Cisco was not to become super rich. It's to build a company that is going to be employee owned, employee focused. So that is my focus over the next 5 to 10 years, to see how big and how better of a company I can make Cyber Synergy.
And Cyber Synergy is a engineering company?
So Cyber Synergy is a IT consulting company with a focus on cybersecurity. We do a lot of defensive cybersecurity, so anything around assessments of organizations, going in trying to figure out what vulnerabilities they may have, what risks they have, the cyber attacks.
At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, what's your legacy?
I think it's going to be around family. It's going to be around family and kids and grandkids. I want them to. I prefer my legacy to be around, grandpa, G-Dub or whatever they're going to call me. I prefer my legacy to be how they view me and how I live my life. And what's it's going to be, I'm not quite sure yet. I'm still figuring it out.
That's fair. Hey, that's totally fair. Totally fair. Okay, so I've got some rapid fire questions. Are you ready for these?
I think so.
It won't be too bad. I promise. It won't be too bad. Favorite food?
Favorite food is going to be ice cream, but it shouldn't be.
What's your favorite ice cream?
It varies, but right now it's butter pecan.
Butter pecan. What keeps coming back?
Uh, Chocolate, uh, Neapolitan. I just love ice cream.
Uh-huh. What is it about ice cream?
Well, I'm a huge dessert fan,
Hmm.
but I like the texture, soft milkshakes. I don't know. I just love ice cream, and I always
Gotcha.
have, always
Gotcha.
have. But I'm allergic to milk, so that's why I shouldn't.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So in moderation.
Yes, yes, in moderation. That's what I'm
Okay.
working on.
Favorite food outside of favorite meal. Excuse me.
Favorite meal, actually, lima bean and sausage and biscuits.
Lima bean, sausage, and
Yeah,
biscuits.
that's what my mom used to make, and yeah, I think that's my favorite meal.
Okay. Favorite song.
Favorite song? Oh wow, I don't know. I don't know if I have one. I don't know if I love music. I love music. I have certain artists that I love, but I don't think I have a favorite song. Probably some New Edition. Probably some New Edition song.
Okay. Okay. Um.
Let's Stay in the Rain. That's what I'm gonna go with right now, so you can get an answer.
Okay. Okay. I'll take it. I'm a New Edition fan. I'll take it. Um. Favorite destination or vacation spot.
Oh wow. I have to go with Hawaii. I've visited a lot of places, but Hawaii, just the temperature. I love plants, so it doesn't get any better from a vegetation standpoint than
Hmm.
Hawaii. And just the temperature's always. I've never been there where it wasn't between like 75 and 83 degrees.
Just perfect.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hmm. What other places have you visited?
So I've been to Thailand, Philippines, Germany, Italy, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, a lot of the Caribbean,
Hmm.
um, Canada. I've a lot of places. I love to travel. So coming from Jones County, that was my thing is that I'm going to travel, right? I want to see
Hmm.
things outside, and so I try to. My goal is to leave the country twice a year. COVID kind of messes that up right now, but that is my goal is to always leave the country twice a year.
Mm-hmm, hmm. Hmm. So, okay, favorite hobby?
Basketball, playing basketball. That's an easy one.
Playing basketball. Favorite team? You have a favorite team?
So it's funny because in North Carolina we didn't have a professional team until I was in college.
Hmm.
So it's always around college teams. So instead of pretending we were NBA players growing up, we always pretend we were college players. So I used to pretend like I was Chucky Brown from NC State. The first basketball game I remember watching was when, actually, you know what? I'll change that. I remember when UNC won the '82 championship, but then NC State came back and won the '83 championship. So even though my dad wasn't a huge sport fan, I actually watched both of those games with him. So I remember those, and that's how I became a huge NC State fan. Huge NC State fan.
Mm-hmm.
NBA, I had to choose. Well, because Charlotte is here, then I'll root for them. But I just like certain. I don't even know many NBA players because I don't watch it.
Yeah, yeah. So, we talked earlier, and you said you don't watch a lot of TV.
No, no, not at all. So the last series of TV shows, I started watching. And I never remember the names of them. CSU, one of the Crime Victims Unit. But the last TV series I watched was probably A Different World. That's how far back it goes. And I remember I was sitting at home watching. Actually, I was at my brother's house because I didn't have cable. My brother that lives down in Greenville, and I was watching something on BET, and
Hmm.
I noticed all the commercials that they had, and it was either around a 40, around fried chicken, or women that had very little clothing on. I
Mm.
was probably, I don't know, 21, 22 years old. And I decided I was going to stop watching TV if that's what they thought of me as an individual. If and it wasn't just one series of commercials. Every time a commercial came on, it was the exact same thing. So I made a conscious effort that I was like, all right, if this is what they're trying to sell to me, and this is what they think of me, especially since BET is considered to be a black channel, then I just prefer not to watch it.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Um, that makes me go to just media itself and the way it portrays um, the not the Black culture but Black men. And it's one of the reasons why I started this platform was because they were telling the Black men's narrative, but what was missing was the Black man from telling the narrative. And so it's interesting to hear you say that. What do you think any of that has changed over the years? I know you don't watch TV, just overall media. Do you think any of that has changed, or it's been the same, gotten worse?
So I really would not be I would not be the good person to ask about that, because when I say I don't watch TV, like I'll watch something on Netflix which has no commercials.
Right.
But I probably turn my TV on. If NC State is not playing, then I probably watch less than 50 hours of TV a year. So I'm not the one that would be able to answer a question around. Now, based on some of the stuff I see, no, it hasn't changed a lot. Like you see billboards, or if you're watching something on YouTube, the commercial that comes up.
Yeah.
I think they tend to gear it a little bit more because of big data and how much they track, how much information they track on us. They're able to gear it a little bit more towards you. So if they see me searching, some technologies thing, they're probably not gonna give me a video about Coke 45. So they're able to gear it a little bit more towards who you are.
Right. So what do you think as we go into the Black Lives Movement and we talk about your sons, yourself at any time doing what you're supposed to be doing, being an upstanding citizen, just moving forward in life, how can we change some of the things that are happening?
So I spend a lot of time thinking about that, and so we've identified that there's a problem, but what is the solution? And quite honestly, I know it's not just a single answer. It's a multitude of things that have to happen in order for us to get to the point that we really want to get to. And that's going to take everything from, working to have some of the policies change and how things are structured, to, us having to look at ourselves and say, okay, how can we better change? How can I make myself a better person to help uplift everybody? But it's gonna take people willing to step out of their comfort zone, to number one, be able to look at other people and have that empathy and try to understand where they're coming from. And I think if we do that as a people, then we can we have the ability to ask other people to do the same thing. Like we have to step and put one another in, we have to step into one another's shoes.
You work in IT industry, which I am assuming, so I guess I'm just asked, that is usually, are you a minority in the room?
Oh, absolutely. It was interesting. So I was deep in my career before I ever had another Black person on my team. When I say deep, I'm talking about 15 years in. I had another Black person on my team, which was always interesting. But again, between 4-H, Jones County, going to NC State, I was almost used to that, where I was the only Black person in the room. But it's very different because, again, how they view me when I walk in is based on a lot of what they see on TV, and again, if that's not a positive view, then they may not see me positive when I walk in the room. Now, again, with who I am, I'm not worried about that, because when I walk in, I'm still going to be who I am regardless.
You walk in and you say, I know the knowledge that I have. I know what I'm here to do, and you'll figure it out eventually.
Right, exactly.
Gotcha. I don't know. You talk about your dad and how he said what he had to say. You may not be vocal. But I have a strong belief that you carry some of those same things just inside.
Absolutely. Walk quietly, but carry a big stick. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. That came from my mom, by the way. Who's all of 5'2", but was equally as bad as he was. So.
Respect, definitely respect. Yes. All right, Mama. All right. So now, before we end, I always like to give our speakers some time to just say whatever it is that they want to say, that they have on their heart to say. I want to say thank you for coming out. I've enjoyed our conversation. I hope you have as well. Um, is there anything that you want to, before you give your last words, anything else that you want to discuss or talk about?
Um, I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot.
Yeah,
We've covered a lot of material.
we have. We've gone out through the years.
It's just
Okay, so I'm going to put myself on mute. It is your platform to speak to whoever, whether it be an individual, community, the world, and whatever is on your heart.
okay.
All
All
right.
right. So I guess my talk is always going to be towards the people that I cared about the most, which are going to be not just my kids, but people of their age and younger. So the younger people, and that the one hope that I have is that they are able to find either part of this message or some other medium, that they find something that inspires them to be the best that they can be and do whatever it is that they can do to make themselves happy. Um, you hope that throughout life, as we hit challenges, that you don't get lost either in your challenges or stuff that's going on around you, but that's just that you're able to always remember who you are, and just not forget that, because we all have the foundation. We're all children of God, and I think as long as we always fall back on that and remember who we are, then I think we'll be okay. We'll be okay.
Thank you, Mr. Craig Williams, for telling your story through your lens. I have had so much fun conversing with you today and learning a lot more about you. To our viewers, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in as you listen to Craig Williams tell his story through his lens. Now, the first part is just listening. That's just sitting back and listening to Craig tell his story. The second part is now on you. The second part is to now take what you listen and check yourself for any biases that you know you may or may not have. Now, he told his story through his lens, and it may be a different lens than you're used to seeing things or hearing things from, which means there may be some other things that may be sparked inside of you and you're not quite sure what that is. You know, the only way that we can get to a different society is for me to change me and you to change you, and to acknowledge where those biases are when they come up, and then take action. So I'm asking you today to please acknowledge and take action. This has been the Voices of a Black Man. Please visit our website at www.voicesofablackman.com for more information. And until next time, I'll say thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye.